Hello, welcome to this webinar on iMusic by Skoog. I'm Keith, one of the software developers here, filling in for Ben today, who couldn't be with us. It is just about 3:30. I see that we have no viewers at the moment, so I might just wait, see if we are expecting quite a high turnout today. So hopefully everybody can sign in, see the broadcast. And if not, I will do just a quick tutorial, a quick run through of the iMusic software, just to get anybody that has a demo version or a licensed version of the software, a quick how-to and getting set up and using the software. Okay. Still don't see anybody online. Okay, well, we'll get started anyway. Basically, this is the last, hopefully, that you'll see of my face. I'm going to conduct this webinar by sharing my screen so you can see what I see, and I will walk through the software and I'll talk you through it, and hopefully we'll have good sound and you'll be able to hear and see what I'm doing, and we'll take it from there. I see one viewer. Hello, welcome. Okay, let's do this. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm using a standard HP laptop with a licensed version of the iMusic software. So I have the full unlocked version, but I'll talk you through some of the main demo features. I think you can see my screen now. Yes, that cascading mirror effect. Let's do this. You don't need to see that. And we can hide this web. And now what you should see is my desktop, and I already have iMusic open, which is here, and otherwise you would double click on your desktop icon to get it open. I'm just going to make it full screen, so hopefully you can see full screen from there. So this is the main iMusic screen with all of its bells and whistles. At the core is basically a simple playing interface to access music. Music making with mouse control. You can use a whole range of assistive technology to control the mouse. That could be an eye gaze, a generic eye tracker, or a head tracker, or any kind of assistive device that can control the mouse. And so this software exists to be able to facilitate that. Now, let me talk you through some of the major points of the software. First thing, it's full screen, obviously. So this guy over here gets you in and out of full screen. Okay. If you want to quit the software at any point, you use this guy, and it asks you, are you sure? And I'm definitely not sure, so I've decided to go back. And a key feature when you're getting started is to go to this question mark here, and that gives you these info bubbles about everything that exists in the software. So as you can see above here, this says this is where you close your program. Here's how we enter and exit full screen over here. Over here is go to the instrument page. Here is our volume and recording. Here we can go to the Skoog settings. We'll talk a bit more about that. That's where you can actually connect to Skoog, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Skoog. You can connect to Skoog and use that with this software. Up above we have the audio settings page, and then on the side we have these 4 colored tabs: edit user preferences, choose notes, select sound effects, and change the audio driver settings. So that question mark icon, pretty much, very much like an iPad. If you've ever done something on GarageBand and you want to know what something does, you reveal the info bubbles and hey presto. Now that's not everything, but it's a start. Also, we have some information on this, some credits. If you're in the demo version, you'll have an extra icon here that will allow you to buy or go to a link to upgrade to the licensed version of the software. That'll direct you to one of our resellers. Otherwise, just some credits about the software itself. Now, your main audio on-off settings are here in the yellow tab with the speaker. Now, by default, this speaker icon here is set to off. And I've just set it to on just by dwelling over the icon. Now, it's off by default to protect your software and sound card. It can have a tendency to crash if the audio is turned on by default. And that is because from setup to setup, we don't quite know what your sound card is going to be adapted to. So here I have the audio settings tab, and I've pre-done the settings that work for this machine, but they are different from machine to machine. So until you've done this setting, turning up, whoops, my apologies, turning on the audio doesn't work. So it's off by default. Apologies to anybody that frustrates, but until we have a better solution, that's the way it has to be. So here we also have some volume up, down, and some recording. So we'll go into greater depth with that as we go through this tutorial. So another thing is there's quite a lot of menus and options in navigation there that can be a bit distracting. They can kind of catch your eye, especially if you are using an eye tracker. So we have added a piece to the software where if you press the H key, which I'm going to do now, you can hide all of the controls and navigation, and you are left with just the screen playing instrument. Okay, so H to hide and show. It's a useful feature. We haven't really documented it very well, so I'm telling you guys now. H does the job. And as I might have mentioned, we use dwell to, as it were, on any of the icons that we have here. So if I put my mouse over an icon, and dwell activate that icon as if it were a click, but there is no need to click. So if you are using an eye tracker and you focused your gaze over an icon, you should click and activate that, and away we go. So I'm going to turn on our audio now, hide away that tab, and then we'll take you through, well, let me just redo that actually. So turn off the audio, and let's go to our audio settings page. Now, here is your basic setup. So you need to select an audio driver. Now, if you're on a Windows machine, like I am here, you'll need one of two drivers, Add MME or Add Direct Sound. Those are the two best case for a basic Windows machine. If you are using an external sound card, that's probably going to be different. So maybe pop a question on the forum there if you have one, and I can think about some solutions for that, but it will be listed on this device list. But how to get the best settings out of it will be kind of a case by case. Now, I've already figured that the Add MME is the one for me, so I've selected that. Now on my output device, I need to choose something. Usually it's just speakers. So I've chosen speakers there, and then we come to vector size and signal vector size. And we found that 128 are good starting points for these two values. And then when we come to thread priority, we just set that to highest. We want audio to be the priority, so we're choosing highest. And then latency, we just use a default of about 100. Now, we're not sure of our settings yet, so we can close that away. At this point, we can try and turn the audio on. And now, let's try and make some sound. Success. Okay, so let's go back and make sure that we save those settings for later. So we have our kind of save settings icon, which looks like a floppy disk, and when I click that, that should be my settings saved for next time. Now, I am aware, being that I'm a software developer for the company, that early versions of the demo didn't have that save function. So if you have one of those early versions and you don't see the icon, then perhaps go back to our website and get a fresh download, and you'll have that. I'm just going to go back in and see if anybody has any questions at this point, or how many viewers we have. So I'm going to unshare my screen and go back to my mug, if that's okay with everybody. 4 viewers. Any questions from anyone at this point? I don't see any. Well, if you're happy for me to go on, say absolutely nothing. Back to screen sharing. Okay, let's do that. Okay, and away with this, and I'm going to get back into full screen iMusic. Here we go. Okay, so we've done the audio setup. Now let's have a look at some of these options that we can have within our software. So the main one for choosing your own preferences are this. I'm going to expose these bubbles again. The user preferences. So you can see that's the orange tab with the people on it. Let's get that going. So I'm going to dwell over that. We have 4 choices here: response, dwell time, repeat time, and overlay mode. Now, the dwell time is really how long your mouse hovers over something before it's seen as a click. And so that's defaulted to 400 milliseconds. I think we can actually increase that, and we're considering increasing that by default to something a little bit longer. So 1,000 milliseconds, or i.e. a second, would be the dwell time. So we'll see the difference between that. If I dwell here, it takes quite a while before it says yes, that's a click. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You may want to avoid accidental clicks, and so to do that, I would adjust dwell time upwards. The repeat time, and I don't know if you noticed, but we've got a lot of pluses and minuses. And in order to get something to repeat without having to dwell and then move away and then dwell again and then move away, we just do a repeat. So if I hang here, you can see that every 400 milliseconds, not well, it's hard to know that it's 400 milliseconds, but every so often a new click is registered and it scrolls through the values that are in my list. So if I adjust that repeat time here to something like 1,000, and now I click here, that movement slows down. So my repeats slow down, which again, not necessarily a bad thing. It's each user has their own preference. You don't want too many accidental clicks, but you also don't want to wait half a day to get your job done. So this is where you do your user settings and get your dwell time and repeat time the way you need it to be. The other thing that's important about this page is the overlay mode. So by default, it's set to none. And what that means is you've got just the 5 groups of circles, colored circles on screen with no other information. We have a few other modes though. Let's have a look. Dynamic 1. When we say dynamic 1, it's not apparent until we get here what's actually happening. So we get these colored lines that follow the cursor and basically direct your vision, allow you to see, well, without having to look too far, I can see there's a yellow line running from right to left, and that kind of lets me know without flicking my eyes towards the yellow that indeed is where yellow is. And I can also follow the blue line and go, okay, blue is that way, so if I want blue next, I can just go to it, and so on. Now another version of dynamic mode is just to make the lines a little bit thicker. So we go to dynamic 2 and try that. Excellent. So, and then we have another one, which is dots. Now they're not, it depends on what size your screen is and how good your resolution. You may not see them when you're sharing from my screen, but these are just dots to focus the eyes on the center of the target. Now, these are all a bit early days for us, and we're not really sure what suits every user. So we welcome suggestions about this overlay mode. It's no great shakes for us to adapt these to increase the line size, thickness, or even to expose that kind of functionality to you, the user, so you can customize it yourself. But we've given you 3. Is it 3? yeah, we've given you 3 or none as a starting point, and then as the suggestions come in, we'll update our software accordingly. So that's your basic user settings tab, and then great thing we can do here is just do the H. So if I wanted to choose, I think I'm going to choose overlay 2. So let's go in, or dynamic 2, sorry. Close the tab and then use H. Great, okay, and then I'm going to click H again and I'm back with all of my settings. So I'll go to none there because I'm quite happy to have just the circles as my guides. So you notice there that there are different size circles, and that's in order to give you some kind of dynamic and expressive control over the sounds. So we've got a flute model just at the moment playing, and we can see that as we're in the smallest circle, you're just hearing breath. It's not even the full instrument expressing itself just yet. And as we go into the larger middle circle, you get the real note coming through with the breath. And then if we go into the largest of all, we'll get the hardest note that we can play. And at the same time, the circles will grow in the color intensity as well. And there's other things that we can do with that. We can change the expressiveness. But as you get through advanced modes, you can change not just the intensity of the sound, but also some things like embouchure, which would be lip tension, and they would kind of deform the sound even more. So it'd give you a greater range of expression. But that's the idea behind the circles. Now we've had some suggestions already to make them even bigger and for them to take up more of the screen. So we welcome that kind of suggestion. Keep them coming. But the general idea is to play soft to loud. Now, unfortunately, I have no idea how loud or distorted that might be for you guys on your end. So I think now is probably a great time to find out if you have any further questions. It would be nice if Google gave me a chime if there was some kind of question, but we can't have it. Let's just check. Hi. No, everything looks fine. Okay, welcome a new viewer. Hi. Okay, if you're joining us a bit late, this is all going to go up on YouTube and will be available for you to view at your leisure. And there'll be links on our Google Plus page for that, and we can maybe email you if you missed it as well. So, okay. I think we'll move on back to some screen sharing. And again, great effect, but we don't need that. Let's do this. Okay. Now, let's have a look at some of the other screens that are available for us. So, over here, let's expose our bubbles. Where do we want to go? So I suppose the first thing you might want to do is go and choose an instrument. So let's take you to that page. We just go, I beg your pardon. Click on the trumpet icon, and here is the unlocked version of the software. So you'll have 11 instruments. On the demo mode, anyone who's familiar with that, you will have just the flute and the vibes. But you'll see that if I just dwell over an instrument, I'll be able to select that. Its name should appear, Peruvian flute, and Jethro, clarinet, vibes. So let's have a listen to vibes. So once I've chosen the instrument I want, I go back to my screen player. I like to go straight to the performance mode, so I click H again. And because vibes is a percussive instrument, you need to go in and go kind of in and out to get a note to sound. If you get to the small circle, you're going to hit it lightly, and then if you hit the big circle, it's much louder. Okay, so that's your vibes. And you'll see we have things like cello as well. So let's have a look at cello. Hello, cello. Okay, and that will be so what I find is that the screen player is far more responsive when in performance mode with the H button. And there's also far less distraction. So that's how I prefer to use it. Let's just go back to the flute. There we go. Okay, and now the next thing that we can look at is how to choose notes. So we have the notes tab over here in green. A lot going on here. So we got on top, we've got a thing called the circle of fifths. We can talk about that later, but otherwise we choose a tonic, which is the bass note of our key, and an octave, which is how high or low it's going to sound, and then whether or not we want a modal scale, which is going to be connected to that circle of fifths above, or whether we want a preset scale. So we can see from preset scales that you can choose major, minor, Japanese, south, harmonic, back around to major. So let's try a minor just now. And we also have chosen F, and we're in the fifth octave. So let's have a listen to how that sounds. Okay, and just to compare that with a major, let's try that. Okay, back to performance mode. Very good. Okay. Now the other thing that we can do is choose a tonic. Let's say let's go with C major, and then we can flick through circle of fifths. Oh, that one says G. Okay, I see. Yes. Okay. And see that down here our modal scale is changing all the time. So there are several ways to choose notes. We're also going to add, hopefully in the near future, very, very individualized note selection so that you can pick exactly the note you want for each of the colors. So you get a very customized scale or something that is just to the tune that you want, and then say, okay, red is going to be this color, blue is this, or not, red is going to be this note, sorry, blue is this note, yellow is this note, and so on. But as it is, you can pretty much achieve anything you want with the 5-note pentatonic style and choosing major, minor, or some of the other kind of variations on that theme. So basic C major works quite well with a lot of different tunes. Now, one other thing we have is some effects, and they're appropriately titled FX. So here we can have fuzz, phaser, echo, or reverb. I'll spare you the fuzz, but some people like it. It's a little bit distorted, and especially for this type of webinar. But we do like the echo. That's going to be good. We could also have some reverb. So you just dwell over each to turn them on, and then we have a number of presets for each. But I'll just go with the default delay 1 and reverb hall at the moment. Go into performance mode. So we got some good kind of soundscapey action happening there. Let's try the vibes with that. Great. Let's try some of these other effects then. Delay 2, what's that all about? Ah, yes. And they sound quite nice. So that's basically effects. We can put on some phaser onto that. That sounds quite nice with the flute, I imagine. But let's try it with the vibes. Not very noticeable. It's there. Probably if you're in this room and not over the web. Let's have a listen to the flute. Great. Okay, and we can turn off each of those effects when we don't need them, just by dwelling over and waiting for their buttons to go white rather than blue. That's the kind of key. Okay, now, what else have we to explore in this software? Well, there's two areas that we haven't gone yet. We'll have a look now. One is basically it's used up here to review recordings, play them back, save them, delete them. And in order to record, then we would need to. Okay, so there's our performance. Now the recording happens here in this yellow tab. Basically, I can start the recording here just by dwelling over record. You'll see it flashes green. That's great. That will keep recording. I'm going to go into performance mode and just record a few notes. There we go. Finished with that. I'm happy enough to stop the recording now. There we go. Come out of the tab, and we should see the recording there. It's a bit loud because of the way the system sound is set up now, but that's it. You now have playback. You can stop, you can loop it, you can save it, or you can delete it. I'm going to delete that one. Not happy with it, but anyway, there we go. That's out of the way. And so that's the kind of audio recording settings page, as it were. And the only other one that we have here in the navigation is to do with the Skoog itself. So if you were to use the Skoog connecting it, you would just set the sensitivity here, and you could also set some advanced options like the kind of twisting motion that we do with the Skoog, where you can twist it to get different kind of levels of expression from your instrument. And basically, that is the software in a nutshell. Yeah, so we've gone through all of the major navigational tabs. We've got our show and hide performance mode, turning on and off the sound, getting you set up with your audio settings, getting in and out of full screen, which is obviously quite happy, and then when you're finished, closing the software down. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'm going to open the floor to some questions. So here we go. I'm sure I want to close the software. I'm done with it, and I'm going to go back to our Hangout and see if anybody has any pressing questions. Okay, here I am at your mercy. So if anybody has questions, I really hope I'm seeing them. I'm not missing any. I see we've got 4 viewers, and I don't see any questions. I hope I've covered everything, or at least everything that you guys wanted to know about the software as it currently stands. Yes, and if you need to review this at any stage or one of Ben's tutorials, oh, I see. What settings would you recommend tweaking to reduce squeaking, etc.? Can you be a little bit more specific about squeaking? Do you mean in terms of instrument squeaking? Oh, wait. Perhaps you can't hear me, or select. Okay, so this is my first time with this, so you'll forgive me. So I wonder if you could just pop in another question, Emma, and clarify squeaking. Are we talking about the flute and its kind of breathy noise? I imagine that's what you might mean. If that's the case, it's stuttering. Semantics. Yeah, I'm struggling. Now, wait. Now this could be to do with your audio settings. Oh, I think we understand each other now. Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's have a look. I'm going to go back and I'm going to screen share. Particularly on the flute. Yes. Okay. Let's have a look at this. So I'm gonna share my screen one more time. I'm gonna get the software up and running. Shouldn't have closed it down. I definitely spoke too soon. But let's get back into it. Yes, some people have described when the audio settings aren't quite right, and this is not just for iMusic but also for our Skoog Music software, is that the sound will sometimes be a bit stuttery and sound like a helicopter. If that sounds like you, then let me just. Oh, beg your pardon. Software is misbehaving. We go to the settings page, and as I mentioned before, there are two audio driver settings that we recommend if you've got built-in sound card. So it's add MME or add direct sound. So the first thing is to just try MME first, choose your speaker, choose the vector sizes that I recommended, make sure the priority is highest, and if you're getting that stuttering helicopter sound, whack that latency up, get it higher, 130, 140, and basically test it like that. I'm going to turn my audio on. There we go. Now, what I might try and do is make it fail. I'm going to get my system to play bad sound, if that's possible, by making my latency lower. So I'm going to bring it down to about 40, and I might end up crashing the software. This is the reason why we... No, it quite likes 40. Okay, we're going to just make sure it... 20. Let's try 20. No, still doing okay. Okay, we'll try 10. That's the absolute lowest. I mean, everybody has different sound cards set up, so it's very hard to do. There we go. So you can see that depending on your sound card, you can definitely make it sound terrible, and you'll know it. It will not sound good. So you need to increase latency until it stops sounding bad. Now you have up to 250, so keep going until it sounds good. And I'm sure that the settings will get there. So something high, and then dial it. Then you can dial it back until it works in most cases. So this time I'm not going to shut down. I'm just going to leave it minimized, but I'm going to come back to you guys, and hopefully, Emma, that's answered your question. So I wonder. Feel free to let me know. But this is a common enough problem that we find with Windows Audio. It's very, very tricky, and that's why those settings are there, so that you can personally adjust them. And that's also why, as I was mentioning at the start, why the on-off button is the way it is. We can't risk turning it on unless, in case we crash your software. And it's best to have the software started and find the right settings and save them. And then from that point on, the only thing you need to do is start the software, turn the audio on, off, and away you go. So I think we've done that. So I'm going to stuttering on the flute, yes, and then cuts out and then squeak squawks when it catches up. It sounds like what I was talking about. So if you could just drop me a quick line to say yes, I can increase my latency and it works, then I think that's our problem solved. Obviously, you can email me at support@skoogmusic.com as well with any of your individual problems if you think it's not appropriate for this forum. But that's a quite common one. So I'm glad you mentioned. And I wonder, does anybody else have questions before I sign off for the day? I will wait. Okay, let's see. Okay, well, I think that's me for the day. Thanks for joining us. There was 4 or 5 of you at one point, and we were expecting about 10, so we'll send an email out to those who couldn't make it. And this guy will be online on YouTube and from our Google+. I think the next webinar is midweek next week. Those details should be available as well. And do drop us a line if you have any further questions. All right, great. Thanks for coming by.